Congresswoman Cammack, the 119th Congress just began, but you've already introduced a couple of bills. We know, if you could just kind of walk us through these bills, this legislation that you've already introduced.
Well, absolutely. We couldn't be more excited for the 119th. And as we're getting underway, we wasted absolutely no time on day one, not only getting sworn in and electing a speaker, but we introduced two major pieces of legislation, the REINS Act, which basically tackles the regulatory regime, which I know a lot of people are probably like, why is that important? Well, it's because major rules and regulations dictate every aspect of our lives. And what this does is it cuts all the unnecessary red tape, saves us taxpayers $2 trillion a year, and it puts the power back in the hands of the people. Because as it stands right now, you have unelected bureaucrats who make these laws, these rules, these regulations, they enforce them. And up until the Supreme Court Chevron decision, they were judge and jury on them. So this is a major realignment. It is a top priority for the Republican conference. But also, we introduced the USA Act, which is a bill that cuts unauthorized spending. Now, people probably don't realize, but there are actual agencies, programs that have never been authorized by Congress, by the people's representatives, and yet they're funded, they're paying for them. So what this bill says is if Congress hasn't done its due diligence, meaning going through, making changes, reforms, cutting out the waste, fraud, and abuse, and really going in and finding out the work that these agencies are doing or not doing, holding them accountable, then they shouldn't be funded. So between the REINS Act and the USA Act, that's $2.5 trillion of spending that we can cut right out the gate, which will put more money back into everyday Americans' pockets.
Once Donald Trump is inaugurated on January 20th, Republicans will have control of all three branches of government.
Yes.
What should folks here in Florida expect to see from Washington, D.C.?
So right out the gate, and this is something that we've been working towards. In fact, today I'll be having 4 meetings on the budget reconciliation process alone. We're going to be putting together a massive reconciliation bill that will encompass everything from border security to keeping taxes low and locking those in permanently for both small mom and pop in businesses as well as industries, and getting our energy independence back, which we're an energy economy, everything from our groceries to our pharmaceuticals and everything in between. It's really driven price-wise by the cost of energy. So we're going to be seeing right out the gate a secure border, making sure that our communities are safe from people who shouldn't be here in the first place. And that's, again, why we passed just yesterday the Lake and Riley Act, which requires that anyone who is in this country illegally and has committed a violent crime needs to be deported. And there is no sanctuary status that can protect them from that. That has to happen. And of course, in Florida, we've seen an influx of fentanyl. This will also be addressed in this reconciliation package. So safer streets, secure borders, bringing down the cost of energy across the board, restarting domestic production, making us safer both economically, but from a national defense standpoint, and then locking in those tax rates that President Donald Trump had originally set up when he was in his first term. That's going to be great because that means every family across the United States will experience that long-term low tax rate, making sure capital gains doesn't go up, making sure that we're not taxing unrealized gains. This is going to be a massive innovation boom economy, and Floridians can expect to see that happen immediately in the first 100 days of the Trump presidency.
Congresswoman Cammack, I know you serve on the Agriculture Committee. Are you concerned at all about the state of Florida's citrus industry?
Absolutely. Being the lone Republican for the House Ag Committee for the entire Sunshine State, it's a lot of pressure because we are an agricultural state. We grow 300 specialty crops. We're a top 5 cow-calf producer. A lot of people think of Florida, they think of Disney, citrus, sunshine, beaches. And if we don't have a thriving citrus commodity and crop in the state of Florida, then we're losing really a piece of our heritage, our identity, as well as a major part of our economy. So one of the things that we've worked is trying to stop the imports. And believe it or not, the federal government has required an importation of foreign citrus in order to meet an arbitrary sugar level, which is insane. And so back a couple weeks ago in December, we were able to get that fixed. So that's going to help give a little bit of a lifeline to our citrus producers. But as so many people know, we have been dealing with citrus greening, and that has really devastated both the producers of the crop and the processors who process all that orange juice in the grapefruit juice. So one of the things that we're doing is continuing that R&D, the research and development funds that goes to the University of Florida to find a cure for citrus greening. That is a huge part of the farm bill that we were able to secure. And of course, working continuously to make sure that we're giving all the resources to our farmers, because as we all know so well, particularly in Central Florida, all those beautiful citrus groves with the high demand for housing and the continued pressure of people moving to the state, if you give up one of those groves, the last crop, it's going to be a housing development. So we're really fighting to protect our producers that are really keeping our state an agricultural state. It's more than just a heritage issue. It's an economic issue, and food security is national security. So we have to think about it in those terms. So anything and everything we can do for our producers in the Sunshine State, we're doing.
Last thing I'll ask you here, we know the Republican majority in the House is somewhat thin. Are there any specific areas that you anticipate working across the aisle on?
Absolutely. You know, we were just talking about agriculture, and I have a great working relationship with Representative Darren Soto, who is the lone Democrat for agriculture in the Sunshine State. So he and I work continuously on a lot of different issues, not just in agriculture, but also in tech. We both serve on the Critical Energy and Commerce Committee, which has jurisdiction of virtually every element of the American economy. And whether it has been taking on TikTok or protecting Americans' data and privacy, whether it has been about getting China out of our telecommunications and our adversaries out of our telecommunications, we've worked hand in glove with our Democratic counterparts because we recognize that this isn't a Republican or a Democrat issue. There are American issues that we have to lock arms together. So regardless of how thin the majority is in the Republican House, we recognize that we are stronger when we work together. So I see a lot of unique opportunities in tackling big government, overreaching government, national security, agriculture, border security, a number of different items that we're already talking to our Democratic counterpoints and working together to make sure that we're getting the best product possible for all of our constituents.